Hello there, this is James Scroft, Ujames 1978, and if you haven't seen my reviews of the first 6 episodes of this carbonated koala piss, then the links are listed down as the underbar. But honestly though, there is no point, because none of it means anything at all. As I explained in the previous video in this series, it's a string of contrived and ridiculous shock porn, with Ali joining the cult at the end of one episode and murdering her wife during the next, simply because it'll have the viewers gasping about it on Twitter. And this being the case, although I promised to make 4 videos about the series, I doubt that I even have enough to say to fill this single video. However, doing my best to fulfill my contractual obligations, episode 7 of Cult is basically just a flashback to Valerie Solanas and the Society for Cutting Up Men, Scum, claiming that they were the Zodiac Killer, but that men took credit for their brutal atrocities, with the sole surviving/remaining member of that movement convincing the female members of Kai's cult to turn against him because he's turned it into a fascist sausage fest, and thus to commit their own grisly Zodiac killing once because, the writer just spotted a butterfly. So then there's the shock twist revelation that she and Kai are actually working together, followed by the shock twist revelation that Kai is actually being manipulated by the scum feminist as part of her evil plan to unleash female rage upon society, but then actually, none of it means a godforsaken thing. While the person who commissioned me to review this rancid puddle of antelope vomit is convinced that the message or what have you is that cults always collapse when their leader drinks their own Kool-Aid, i.e. starts believing their own propaganda, because it either causes the cult to disband or commit mass suicide, or causes one of the members of the cult to betray them, no. Even leaving aside the fact that his definition of collapse is brought to the point of total meaninglessness, putting members who leave or who drop a dime on their leader in exactly the same category as members who are so devoted that they are willing to commit ritual suicide, and ignoring the fact that cults are just as likely, if not more likely, to collapse if their leader is merely exploiting them, and on the flip side of that coin as well, are just as, if not more likely, to spin out of the leader's control as he is cast aside and the movement evolves into something else, such as was the case with Scientology. Even if he's right, it's the stupidest, most moot and most unrelatable point in the history of fiction, because cults are bad and are always doomed to quote-unquote collapse. Even if that's true, why take the time to spell it out, especially considering that the villain being bad and people turning against him is kind of the default in stories such as this?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to? What the hell does this have to do with anything?
Like the couple being sealed in coffins in one of the earlier episodes, the flashbacks recreating the most infamous mass suicides in American history are an aside that's thrown in solely because someone thought it would be cool and scary. Far from making any kind of point about or giving any insight into the nature of cults, Kai believing that he is and or is the father of the Messiah is simply thrown in because it's dramatic. And what else are they going to do to pad out the runtime? With Kai believing that he's the father of Ali's son, but then she proves that he isn't, but then she convinces him that he is, like it's a motherfucking soap opera.
Hey Mom and Dad, I walked home from school.
Hey Joshy, how was school?
Okay, I got an F in math. F for fantastic.
Oh, wow, okay, good job, son.
But then my teacher died.
Hey, Johnson family, I got a package from your grandma.
Can't you see we're busy? Get out of here!
She died, Joshy?
Yeah, she was sick of her hair being gray, so she dyed it.
What a relief.
But then she had a bad reaction to the chemicals, and now she's a vegetable. In the school play, she's a carrot.
Son! It's not good for you to mislead us like that.
I didn't mislead. You just didn't listen!
And following the whole Jesus, Judas and Caesar Brutus trope, one of the final revelations that Kai's most loyal cultists never actually believed in him was merely a post hoc retcon, because in the climactic scene in which it looks as if Kai is going to kill her, Ali had to survive and win, so Kai had to be betrayed, and she was the one whose name was picked to be the traitor when the writer threw a dart. That's it. Like, it's suddenly been revealed a few episodes in that Ivy had always hated Ali to explain the first 3 episodes, but then her later confessing to Ali that as a strong, independent lesbian woman, she had only convinced herself that she hated her because she wanted a daddy. The writer was just making shit up as he went along. And hang on a second, wasn't all of this supposed to have at least something to do with the election of, and thus the threat posed by Donald Trump? Revelation after revelation, twist after twist, dragging the plot so far away from anything believable, relevant, or relatable that you couldn't find it with a telescope on a nice clear night, because with a dramatic twist or revelation being the sprinkles in this analogy, if a cake is better with a handful of sprinkles, then burying the cake in 17 metric tons of sprinkles must obviously make it legendary. The math works out, doesn't it? And cutting all the way to the very end and the final handful of sprinkles being thrown onto the mountain that was once a cake, having committed multiple cold-blooded murders, regained her son, defeated Kai and been elected senator, Ali puts on the green velvet cloak which now identifies her as a member of Scum. So if the series had even pretended to have any kind of message to convey, then I would have been outraged by this implication that lesbian feminists are just as dangerous and evil as gun-toting Nazis who plotted to murder 100 pregnant women in a single night simply to send a message, start a revolution, or whatever other rationalisation the writer pulled out of his arse, because it's the atrocity that was picked when he threw the dart. However, this ending is merely another shock revelation for the sake of having one, a retread of the done-to-death trope that the good guy won, but they're actually a bad guy as well. Dun dun dun. And it doesn't make sense because Ali loves her son, one of the evolutionary abortions who needs to be exterminated according to Scum's ideology. However, none of the series makes any sense at all if you stop to think about it for a single second. And finally, the question that the person who commissioned this video keeps asking over and over again is what I think a British version of this series might look like, apparently hoping for an in-depth analysis such as this.
It was just about basic human fears like death or losing control, then every country's horror movies would be the same, and they're not. Scary stories are so completely different country to country because they're based on shared cultural experiences. In England, for example, all of their scary stories take place in an urban environment. Scrooge was haunted there. Jekyll and Hyde took place there. Jack the Ripper became a legend because he killed in a city. Try and name one legitimately scary American horror movie that took place in the city.
Independence Day? Battle, Los Angeles?
See? Yeah, you can't. No one can even try. American scary stories have to happen on the outsides of civilization. The woods, the farms, the burbs. The car breaks down on a remote country road. The maniac with the machete, he stalks people around a secluded wooded campground.
Friday the 13th, 8. Jason took Manhattan.
Did you see that movie? No, you didn't. It took place on a boat. Almost entirely took place on a cruise ship. That's how unscary we find cities. The one movie where the whole goal was to just put Jason in the city couldn't even actually do that.
Ooh, Leprechaun in the Hood.
Yeah, exactly. You try to set an American horror story in an urban environment, and it ends up being a joke. You do that same thing in England, and you end up with Attack the Block.
Attack... Alien movie? Come on, Dan is... But I'm... Whatever. This conversation is culturally biased.
So, British people prefer to tell their scary stories around garbage can fires. Who cares?
It's showing us what we're actually afraid of, Soren. Ourselves. Our greatest fear is losing our humanity.
Damn.
Yeah.
My arm is not long enough for the jerk-off motion that is in my soul right now.
British people are afraid of cities because that's where they lost their humanity. The Industrial Revolution turned London into a carnival of horrors. Orphans sold into slavery. Parents thrown into debtor's prison. And America, on the other hand, we did all of our filthy dirt on the outskirts of society, killing the Native Americans on the frontier. The horrors of slavery. American and British ghosts prefer different habitats, but they're both still in chains always.
So we're scared of white guilt?
We're scared of the truth! Man, the Western Hemisphere lost its humanity in exchange for taking over the globe. That's why our core monsters, vampires, werewolves, zombies, operate by converting us into them.
We're afraid of them because they take our humanity.
However, there can't be a British version of Cult because it isn't the American version of anything. Literally the only thing that a British version of this series could possibly be is an equally meaningless pile of contrivances stringing together an endless parade of shocking twists and revelations, but throwing in superficial and eye-rollingly on-the-nose references to Brexit instead of Trump in the desperate attempt to pretend that it's topical and relevant, because ultimately it's nothing but a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that if he simply changed the tone, then this could easily be a parody of itself starring William motherfucking Farrell.